Welcome to TechBridge Studio Founder Stories in Japan, Episode 3. My name is Matt Ainsworth, and today we're speaking to David Gepere, who is French born but has been in Japan for several years now. Starting off his journey in Japan with a working holiday visa, he then moved on to the startup visa, business manager visa, and has also renewed the business manager visa as well, finally getting 3 years to help him kind of set himself in Japan for a little while. We're talking to him about his entrepreneurial journey, not only the visa process from startup to business manager and renewal, but also a little bit about what it takes to build a business that is not the domestic market focused, outward looking to the global market, and also give some insight or share some views on the Kyoto startup ecosystem, and I guess in the broader Kansai ecosystem as well. So without further ado, let's get into it. You can get going. All right, cool. Thanks everyone for joining. I'm sure a few people will trickle onto the session as we keep going. But my name is Matt Ainsworth. For anyone who doesn't know, I lived in Japan until the end of 2022, and have been working with startups for the last 7 years in Japan, first of all. And then now, unfortunately, I'm not in Tokyo or Japan anymore. I'm back in Perth, back in Australia, where I'm from. Perth is not my home city, but it's a new city for me again, but still enjoying it while I'm here. And today we're talking to David, who is a startup visa, well, was a startup visa holder, business manager visa holder, and has recently renewed to business manager visa to 3 years. But we'll learn more about that as we delve into this conversation. TechBridge Visa really is just a community to kind of talk more about entrepreneurship and entrepreneurial journey and the opportunities available in Japan. We're really trying to build a community and really help people disseminate some of the bad information that's out there versus what people actually go through. So I think that's why we're sharing some of these stories, and yeah, really fortunate today to have David join us. So, David, do you want to do a bit of a quick intro for the people joining today?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Matt. I think what you're doing with that group is really important. Actually, like this, removing the lies and the ideas and about what it is to actually run a business in Japan on all levels. So yeah, quick about myself. So David Gepere. I was born in France. I grew up in France. When I was 20, I got tired of France and I moved to Sweden to study for like 3 years, and then I lived there for another 7 years, so 10 years in total. I got the Swedish citizenship as well. So now I've got 2 passports, so twice the renewal fee, twice the renewal paperwork. Yay! I was so after my studies, I looked for work for like a year, and then I didn't really find anything, and I thought the whole system was just crazy, so I just started my own business, and that was in late 2013. So it's been I celebrated 10 years last year, actually, last November. So yeah, 11 years now. And I did different things. First, I was selling ice cream for a while, and then I tried to help a Korean show to come to Europe, and didn't work. Then I started teaching French, and I started doing some translation, and then I added voice acting on top of this. So that's the business I'm currently running here in Japan. It's the voice acting, translation, and helping media companies localize their content, basically. And I moved to Japan in 2020, right before COVID. I moved to Kyoto, and I've been living here for the last 4 years now, 2024. And like Matt said, so I came on a working holiday visa because I was just giddy, just at the age, but I could still get it. And that's a very good visa, for just living in Japan for 1 year, test things out. I didn't know about COVID, of course, when I landed. But it turned out to work out pretty well. All the tourists were gone in Kyoto, so it was a good time to be there. And then after that, I had to decide, okay, how do I stay in Japan, right? And there's the big options. You have the main options is either you start a business, or you do the business thing, or you do the spouse thing, or you do the employee thing, or students. And then you have a few of those cultural visas on the side, but usually you can't work. And I decided, okay, my business is too important. I spent years building it up. It took me years to get it to work, so I'll follow the business path. And so I transitioned to the startup visa, and then after a year, I transitioned to business manager. 1 year renew, 1 year, and I just renewed and got the 3 years visa last week, which is kind of the ultimate thing you can hope for with the business manager visa, basically. Even though it doesn't sound that great, but anybody who's gone through that process knows it's quite an achievement.
I think the ultimate is 5 years now, because when I was there, I had two 5 year visas. I'm not showing off or gloating,
Yeah,
but
it is correct. It's 5 years. The thing is, the 5 years thing, usually you can't get it before you get 3 years anyway.
right.
So and it's like really far into the future. And the second thing is, from what I've understood, is it's very dependent on the type of business you run. Like if you have a big one with lots of employees and lots of shops and things, sure. But if you do like a small business like I'm doing, and you don't really intend to hire people,
Yep.
they might block you, right? So
Yeah.
I will of course try in 3 years, but it might just not be possible. It's going to depend a bit on how the rules change and things like that. That's why I think 3 years is really the thing that most people, at least when you start, that's the thing you want to aim for, because
Yep.
it means your business is running, it means they're trusting you, you have money coming in, and you're good to go, basically.
Okay, cool. So maybe let's just take a step back. I guess in the intro, you talked a lot about what you've done in your journey in Japan so far. What's something that perhaps people don't know about you? Something unique, something, that you don't talk about so much? Doesn't have to be something too
Uh,
secretive, but yeah, something that perhaps even people that know you on this call might think, oh, wait, I didn't know that about you.
Something business related, you meant, or
No, it
Japan
can be anything.
related, or anything? Well, one thing, it's not business related, but when I was a kid, I was practicing karate, right? So that was my first exposure to Japan.
Okay.
And I remember at that time we had to learn this kind of code of honor thing, that lists, okay, respect is important, and you have to look at yourself in the mirror, all that great stuff.
Hmm.
And it was all in Japanese, and I basically learned by heart the whole thing without understanding. 'Cause I was very young. I was like, yeah, what, 5, 6, or 7 years old, so I didn't really understand what I was doing. But I was basically learning Japanese, and just spewing this out. And of course, I forgot it was 20 years ago, and it
Yeah.
was pretty advanced stuff. It was those like cool words and stuff. So that was the first exposure to Japan a long time
Okay.
ago.
Can you remember any karate now? Are you dangerous or you pretty safe
Uh,
these days?
I like to think so, but I think running is a better option. So I work on my stamina.
Yeah, okay. Okay, well, let's get into today then. So I think the first thing we'll look at is, why Japan? So you were sorry, Sweden, was it? Did you say?
Yeah,
Yeah.
correct. Yeah.
So what made you come on your working holiday visa, and I guess more to the point, why Kyoto as well?
Yeah, and I wish there was like a big epic story, but the thing is, you know, like a calling from the gods or something. But the thing is that I had been to Japan as a tourist back in 2009 when what was it? Yeah, I turned 20 or something, and it was this big thing. I was a big fan of anime and all that things, and I financed the trip by myself with my friend, and that trip made a big impression on us. And then for the next 10 years, I just had this in the back of my mind, but without really acting on it. I was in Sweden, focused on Sweden, discovering the country, learning the language, and then I created my business. Took me years to figure things out. So that was just not on the table. And then in 2019, for various reasons, I was like, okay, I want to leave Sweden, and I found myself with a business I could run from anywhere in the world without really building this proactively. I just looked back, oh wow, that kind of works. So I started traveling a bit, and I thought, well, it seems like a good time to go back to Japan. And I, as a tourist, I went there, met some people, kept in touch, and I told them, well, if I come back for a month, and those were in Kyoto, right? I mean, I came as a tourist in Kyoto, met those people, and I told them, if I come back for a month, will you introduce me to your shared office? Will you introduce me to your friends? I want to test living here.
Right.
And they said, yeah, sure. And that's why, I ended up in Kyoto, just because I had contacts here. And I like the city. It's just the right size for me. It has access to everything. That's why I also decided to stay, because I'm not really in touch with those people anymore. But it started like this. And, when that month test kind of worked out, I thought, well, since I want to get out of Sweden, and I know a few people in Japan, it's certainly not the easiest place to move to. It's pretty tough with all paperwork, the language, and things. But yeah, instead of moving somewhere else where I didn't know anybody, I thought I might as well come here. And I had that old dream of mine in the back. So that's how I ended up there.
But you've been pretty resilient to do like all this paperwork yourself and kind of stick with it. And I would say, I would judge anyway, just from, listening to what you've achieved over the past 5 or so years.
Yeah.
So.
I think, just when I moved here, I had some friends helping me with the registration process and, setting up the health insurance, all that stuff. After that, basically, that's the good thing of working holiday. You don't really need to think about this too hard. You've got your accommodation, you got the just legal registration done. I got a bank account. I tried to. I basically lived here as if I was going to stay longer. So I really tried to get everything done right, but you don't really have to. So it's a great visa. You can, you just get the minimum done, the minimum exposure to paperwork and all the boring stuff, and then you get all the good stuff from Japan. You get the food, you can travel, safety, all that stuff. But for me, I decided, I'm going to stay in Japan. I'm going to stay in Kyoto. I'm really going to focus on business, focus on making friends until COVID, of course. Then the friend part kind of died off. So I started visiting around. And then, I don't know. It's just maybe how I think. I think I got, once I started to get my head more into the paperwork thing and I saw the madness of it all, my first reaction was more like, it doesn't make sense. A person should not be asked to pay, struggle so much when they're going to bring value. Because I knew my business was already making money and I would be bringing value to Japan, right? And I had this, I think it's really an ethical or a philosophical problem with the whole approach to things. And my reaction when I saw this was, kind of anger and like, I'm just going to push through. And I guess some people are much more chill about those things. And they could make the argument like, I've kind of spent a lot of time on this and I would probably have, if I had outsourced all this to someone else, I could have invested that time in my business and, just let the lawyer or whatever these guys do their thing and earn more money and focus on marketing, right? And that's definitely a way of looking at this. But I don't know, maybe it's just how I'm wired, right? Just wanted to get this done, maybe prove to myself and everyone else that, I could do it or that it was possible. I don't know.
And no doubt learned a lot in the process as well, I guess, including a lot of Japanese terminology.
Yeah, exactly. Things that, nobody uses, or they're like, how do you know that? But that's true.
Cool. So just for the audience's benefit, we will open up to questions towards the end. So we'll hopefully talk for about till about say 8:40 or so, 8:45, and then we'll open up to anyone if you have any questions for David as well. But let's talk a little bit more about your business, just because it's not really the Japan domestic market focus. It's more about overseas opportunities. Is that what I understand correctly? And obviously looking at your LinkedIn profile and headline, that says it all.
So indeed, because, again, I had that business. I started the business in Sweden, right? And again, I wasn't sure exactly what I was doing. And when the voice acting thing took off a little bit and even translation, I found myself very quickly reaching out to companies outside of Sweden because Sweden is also pretty small. So I reached out, to the rest of Europe, obviously, to North America, a lot of Anglo-Saxon countries, the UK as well. And that's just how the business kind of took off. That's how I made it. One of my big customer was in the Netherlands for the voice acting thing that really helped kickstart my career. And that's just how it is, right? And when I moved to Japan on that working holiday, I was like, well, I can work anywhere. So I just kind of continued using my Swedish structure to invoice and do all that thing. And I was just in Japan. It was just a time difference to take into account. That was it. It made no difference. And basically, that's just the business that I moved, right? And well, we can talk about this a bit later because doing so, even though it was, in my opinion, quite smart and, guaranteed an income, and that's one of the reasons why I could get those 3 years visa. That's not really how the visas were designed, especially the startup visa. And even the business manager visa to some extent, they're not really designed for that. So it was a bit of a struggle to navigate that part. And then, when arriving in Japan, I, of course, reached out to some Japanese companies and tried to see what opportunities I could find in voice acting world. Translation is very limited because my Japanese isn't good enough to work with that. Voice acting, I thought, I can do it in English, I can do it in French. Let's see. But but yeah, business culture in Japan is quite a challenge. My Japanese was extremely poor. I didn't speak anything when I arrived, basically. So I did find a few customers, and even recently I've had a few Japanese customers sending some work, but it's still very small. And just recently I was thinking of I tried to record some demos in Japanese, foreign accented Japanese, and thought, maybe I can try to sell that in Japan to agents and stuff. Yeah, do you want an anime character who speaks Japanese with a French accent or something? But there might be a market, I don't know. But I've been kind of hitting a wall for now. I think my Japanese is not good enough. I mean, it's enough for talking with people in the street and stuff, but actually recording demos and acting and things, I'm like, yeah. I send it to my Japanese friend. They're like, yeah, mochotto, not there yet. So I'll leave that aside. So I think it's my industry as well. Just what I sell is not super compatible here, maybe.
Yeah, I see. I know people in Tokyo like that were doing voice acting, so I think there's obviously English. Yeah. There is an opportunity or a market there for it. I guess I don't understand from a French point of view, or even French speaking.
French is very limited
because
I don't really have. Yeah, I mean, I don't. As far as I can tell, we're certainly not in Kyoto, but even in Japan as a whole, I think there are very, very few professional French-speaking voice actors. I've met two that are pretty good. A lot of people, they just happen to speak French and they give them a microphone to record something. But
right.
Actual professional voice actors, and the guys I know are more like narrators. Do stuff for NHK. They do documentaries once in a while. But they're not like full-fledged voice actors. Like I do. Like you can do games. I can do corporate videos. Anime, whatever. So it's just that there's very, very little work in French. And English, you have more competition. English is not my mother tongue, so I offer what I call international English, which some companies want to have because it doesn't sound fully, American or Australian or UK or whatever.
Sure.
And some of them want that, right? But some of them don't.
Right. Okay, cool. So maybe let's talk more about kind of your business and the startup visa, because I've kind of worked with a few people helping them with the startup visa. Their business has always been focused on the domestic market. So how did they look at your business when yours was obviously outward facing or more
it was
focused
not,
on
yeah. So exactly. So what happened, I remember that meeting in November 2020. I still had like 3 or 4 months left on my working holiday visa, and I thought, well, it's going to be time to get the process started if I want to transition to the startup visa and stay in Japan. Because the one thing you don't want to do is having to go back to Europe and do some paperwork and coming back. It's so much easier to just transition. And that's a tip, by the way, for people who are interested in this. It's much easier if you get like a student visa or something and you're in Japan already and you can navigate all that stuff instead of doing from abroad. But more and more people do it from abroad. It's possible as well. So I reached out to them. I was like, November, I still have like 3 months or something. Should be way enough time. Boy, was I wrong. And they sent me a little paper. Said, can you fill in your business idea, your business plan? Doesn't have to be super detailed, just explain that to us. And I was very honest. I was like, well, I'm not going to start a brand new business per se. I'm going to move my business from Sweden. And they have a list of categories that you have to be in to qualify for the startup visa. And there's 10 of those, at least in Kyoto. And, it's like tourism, it's like media, it's biotech, IT, things like that. And I told them, well, I'm a bit in the media field, right? So that's probably what my business is. And, I sent that to them. And then they invited me, okay, come and let's chat. And basically they told me, well, you can't get the startup visa by moving your business here. I was like, okay. And so you have to start a brand new business. And I thought, and I told them, the structure will be new. Obviously, I'm going to start a Japanese company, and I'll move my customers here. So I'm going to sell the same services. So you can't do that. You have to start something new. And I was like, so you basically want me to create something brand new with all the risks associated with this, when I'm telling you I can guarantee an income and paying tax and creating value, right?
Yeah.
And they were like, yes. And I thought, oh boy, this is going to be tough.
Right.
And that's the thing, right? That's the thing to understand with the startup visa. the actual paperwork is not super complicated. Like you need to fill a few things, and then you need to send it to JETRO or whichever organization is in charge.
Mm-hmm.
They're gonna review it, and that's what we did. We started tweaking things and changing things. And they told me, can you write this here? Can you write this there? And this turned into a game of really, matching boxes. There is a bunch of boxes, ticking boxes, basically. And that's the thing you need to understand. The entire, not you, Matt, but the audience or whoever is interested in the visa. The visa thing and most paperwork is a game of ticking boxes. So what you need to understand, what are their boxes, and then just find a way to tick them without lying, or at least not too much, and without, straying too far away from your actual business. And I always give that image, and people like it usually. I say, when you start dealing with all this paperwork and process, you need to take your brain, you put it in the fridge, and then you just go talk with these guys, listen to what they have to say, take notes, but forget anything about common sense. I was like that. And I've talked with a lot of people who needed help with the visa, right? Mm-hmm. And when I listen to them, they're like, but I don't have this, but I have that. Or, well, this is the equivalent with it. I'm like, I understand. That's how we think. That's how business people think. That's how, normal human beings think. But that is not how this works. And you need to really, again, you take your brain, you stop thinking, really. Because that was it. I was standing there telling them, I've got something better. No, we don't want it. That's just not how they think, right? And how it works. Yeah. And it's very important to get this from the get-go.
Well, I think the name of the visa itself can be considered misleading because they don't take that startup approach of like being flexible or being like seeing the business owner as potentially, expanding operations into a different country or, so I think that word itself can be misleading a little bit for people. And then you're dealing with government, employees, which they probably don't think like an entrepreneur or a business owner or a startup founder, and so very different worlds are colliding.
It's exactly that, basically. And it was, for me, it was very frustrating. And again, some people, they just go with the flow. Good for them. For me, just my personality, that kind of thing just makes me mad because I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. There is no, every time I ask, why do you need this? Why do you need that? You don't get a why. You don't get a reason. And it was even worse when I started looking at the business manager visa and to convert and then transfer. And then you look at all those rules and stuff. And I was like, can anybody tell me why? And there is no why, right? That's just how it is. Yeah. So you end up sitting down with somebody from the immigration office or the government or whatever and telling them, okay, how do I get that office approved, right? And they're like, well, you need to, and that's a true story, by the way. I looked at an office thing and it was like, well, you need to build a wall. So we need to put a freaking wall here. If we put a wall here, you're good. Well, that's it. Then I just finance a freaking wall, right?
Okay.
So it's a mindset thing, and I think it's for entrepreneurs. It's hard. It's hard, maybe more than for the other people, because really that's not how you run a business. You can't run a business like this.
Yeah.
You have to have common sense. You have to look for shortcuts and things that are more effective and all that stuff, right? But that just doesn't apply in this world. Including for the startup visa.
Yeah.
So you can't think like that.
Yeah, and maybe just to reiterate, like for people looking at either the startup visa or the business manager visa, the requirements are very similar in that, you need 5 million yen worth of savings at a minimum, probably more if you really want to be successful in business and be able to spend some money. If it's a startup visa, you need local city support. So David, in your case, it was Kyoto. If it's a business manager visa, obviously you're going through immigration and there's a little bit, you have a little bit more flexibility about where you can live. Yeah. Is that right?
So just to comment on what you said, again, the SAR visa was a long time ago, but a friend of mine, unfortunately, I think he's not on the call, but he's really in the process of doing it. And I'm thinking of really helping him and coaching him to go through the whole thing one more time and see, if I'm able to share useful tips and also update my knowledge on how things are changing. I think Kyoto got that visa like in July, and I applied for it again. I was in touch in like November, so it was still very chaotic.
Right.
They didn't really know what they were doing, and I don't blame them for that. And from what I've heard, it has become a little bit better structured.
Yep.
They're still pretty slow because the end of the story is that I sent that first email in November, end of November, and I got the visa in early September the next year.
Wow.
Right? and I thought that's just my situation is crazy because I had to tweak so many things and stuff. But I've talked with people. I think Charles on the call told me that it took him almost a year to get the startup visa. And this is a common thing. Some people maybe not a year, but 6 months or something. So that's also something to take into account. It's very slow. And just back to what you said regarding the requirements, as far as I can tell, the startup visa does not have. I mean, they want you to have enough money to support yourself because you're not allowed to work while you're on a startup visa, right? So you're coming here and you do all the paperwork and all that thing that you have to do to start the business, but you have to live off your savings unless you do what I'm doing or you do what Charles is doing or whatever, which is, you already have a business running and this is feeding you. And there are horror stories of these guys who came with great ideas and everything, but after 6 months they run out of savings. And when it's time to renew, because the startup visa is only 6 months and then you renew it once. And so you can do it once and then it's 12 months in total. Then they're going to check again. They say, okay, can you show us your savings and all that stuff? So you do need a little bit of money, but it's not exactly the same. Business manager, you need 5 million yen minimum for company capital. When you create the company, you have to show them, okay, I've got that money and this will be company capital. And then you have to think, how much do I need? Exactly like you said, if you need to buy stuff, whatever. For me, I don't, so it doesn't really matter. But yeah, if you have big machinery or big investment, maybe you'll need more than 5 million. But that's a little bit different in that respect, right? The first one is more similar to, maybe certain student visas or things where they check your resources and that you're not going to be a dead weight for society, basically. That's what they want to check.
I think I came first on a student visa and they check I think you needed $20,000 US. In the bank account.
Right.
That's probably changed because that was 12 years ago. But yeah, so I still understand startup visa. You still need to prove 5 million yen worth of capital in a bank account somewhere. Business manager visa now, what you just need to you need to actually show that it's in a Japanese bank account. Is that right? Is that what I understand?
Because the 5 million yen. Well, it's a two-step process. Again, for the startup visa, I'm 5 million sounds like a lot, though. I'm surprised. Maybe that's what it is. I don't remember. But yeah, like you said, you just basically show that you've got that money and you can support yourself. I forgot how they calculate. It's like you need X amount, X amount of money per month. The business manager, what happens is when you create the company, part of the process, they're going to ask you, okay, what's the capital of the company, and to prove it, you need to have that money on a Japanese bank account in your name.
That's right.
In the name of the company owner, and then they're going to be okay, right? And they will also ask you to explain where the money comes from. There's a bunch of complicated stuff.
Right.
It would be so easy otherwise. And you just prove it, and then they're going to write on your take-on on the articles of incorporation. Okay, that company's capital is 5 million yen. And then when you apply for the business manager visa, they're not going to check again. As far as I can tell, now I have an awful doubt, but I don't think I proved that again to them. I just show them, okay, this is my company, it's registered, its capital is 5 million yen. So you prove it when you register the company. You don't prove it to the immigration office. They don't need it because they can see it. It's already there.
I just wonder in retrospect, and obviously we can't change the past, but would it have been better for you to apply for the business manager visa up front rather than the startup visa?
Yeah, and that's a question a lot of people ask me because at the time I didn't know it would take so long.
Right.
And the reason I didn't have to go back to Europe to do all that thing is thanks to COVID, I was allowed to extend the working holiday visa, which usually you cannot do. That visa is like 1 year and then you're out.
Yep.
And thanks to COVID, because it was really the height of it, they were like, okay, you can get an extra 6 months. And thanks to this, even though it was still giddy, after 6 months, just on the edge, I managed to apply because it took them so long.
Right.
But if I had known they would have taken so much time, I don't know. The thing is that the business manager is also very complex, and there's no way I could have, I didn't have enough knowledge about all that stuff to do this while I just arrived in Japan. I was still, first year because I would have had to start basically right after I arrived in Japan. I would have started to, prepare the paperwork and everything. And there's no way I could have done that. I just arrived in the country and then COVID started. So in my case, I think even if I had known, it still made sense to transition to the startup visa because that gives you time. That's basically what it is. The startup visa is just a way, and that's what people need to understand. You will not get any support for the business manager visa. They're not going to help you. you're not going to get any shortcut or what do you call it, a quick way to get the visa, or some preferential treatment. Doesn't work like that. The only thing is that if you're not in Japan, or if you're in Japan on a visa that's going to expire soon or whatever, or if, I have a lot of people who are on student visa, they've got like 3 years visa, they've got plenty of time, but they have to go to school every day. It's hard to focus on the business and go to school. So if you want to focus 100% on creating the stuff, the paperwork and everything, that's what you want this visa for. And in Kyoto, they give you a little bit of support. Like for me, they paid for the registration fee, for instance, for the company. So, you get a bit of that. But this is a really a valid point, because if you don't need that extra time, again, a guy I was talking about who's going to get the STAR visa soon, he was really hesitating because he had already his business ID, he had the student visa, he had enough time to work on everything, and he felt, why should I go through all this process, spend months, and all that stuff, just to then begin the business manager? Why don't you start right away? And it's a very valid point. And especially if you get some support, if you get help, if somebody can help you with the business manager and, advise you, or if you just let the lawyer do it, then I guess it's a valid question. So.
Yeah, it's a good point that you raise, especially about support, because my friend's just applied for a starter visa in Kobe, and he's arriving next month. And he got, one of the subsidies he got was, I think it was like 60 to 70% of his office paid for the first 3 years, maybe, specifically from Kobe. So they're trying to encourage him to stay in Kobe and, renew the business manager visa in Kobe, obviously, as well. Yeah, and so I'm starting to see the startup cities provide a bit more support now around not only subsidies and grants, but also through external consultancies around like helping them, prepare the right paperwork around the business plan, pitch deck, their resume, and, what is their idea? Is it valid or viable for Japan? That kind of stuff. So Sapporo and Fukuoka especially, I've seen them trying to partner with some external agencies or consultancies now to help do that. So I think that's a good.
I heard
good thing.
Yeah, exactly. I heard in Kyoto they can give you some support for office and stuff, but it's not as high as I think 60 to 70%. It's more like a maximum amount, which is like I think it's 20,000 yen per month.
Okay.
My time.
Yep.
And again, there are some restrictions and stuff, but so there is a bit of that. Maybe Kobe is different. That's possible.
Yeah.
I did hear a guy. That's possible, a guy who came recently to Kyoto, and he got a lot of support when he arrived with, registration and, setting up his life here. And well, I didn't, because I arrived with the working holiday visa. So I had handled this already by myself. Because if you just arrive in Japan, on top of, all the mess and all the paperwork and everything that you need to prepare, you need also to do your own private thing. You need to find your accommodation, you need to register in the system and everything. So getting that support really helps, I think. For me, I had all this done. I already had a bank account, already had my accommodation and all that stuff. So I could just focus purely on visa paperwork. But yeah, if you add all that stuff, like preparing all this, plus the business manager visa, plus your actual business, you're still supposed to, create a company and run a business. It's very time consuming.
Yeah, I can imagine. So Japan can seem like a really awesome place to build your startup. But perhaps it's more difficult than it may first appear with understanding the business culture and regulations, the startup visa regulations and requirements, as well as even understanding if you have a viable business idea for the Japanese market. We can help you navigate all of these challenges and more. So if you'd like more help with either the startup visa in Japan or the business manager visa in Japan, feel free to reach out to us via our website, techbridgestudio.com, or email me, matt@techbridgestudio.com. Now back to the session. So let's talk about that time-consuming process a bit. So you've gone now from startup visa to business manager visa and then renewing your business manager visa. So do you want to talk a little bit about that, or, especially any key points that people should be aware of in that process?
Yeah, so it's a very big topic, but the general thing is, so like I said, you get the startup visa. It basically allows you to be in Japan and focus on the startup visa, focus on the business manager visa, sorry, and of course on your actual business, right? the process is complicated because there is a lot. First, they want to see a lot of paperwork. If you check out the immigration website for the business manager visa, there is a lot of papers that you have to bring. A lot of them don't make sense. So the idea that you need, the big one is like you need an office, and you need like a really old-fashioned office with a door and a key and all that stuff.
Wow.
And if you have again, I think it's a lot about this. If you have either a lot of money or you have a business that is just running, you can just throw money at the problem. Like literally, you just hire accountants, you just hire a lawyer, you hire a judicial scrivener, you tell them, okay, just fix it. I need an office. Okay, I'll just get an office in the center of town or whatever, and you'll be good to go. It's going to be expensive, but you'll be good to go, and it's going to be relatively fast. And I guess the results are relatively predictable. Because the lawyers, what they do is they just create a business that is business manager compliant. It's going to tick all the boxes, right?
Yeah.
So that's one way of looking at it, right? For me, I didn't want, again, because I had an issue with that. I thought it doesn't make sense. So I wanted to do it all myself. So I had to figure out all those points, right? And so you have to understand all this. Then when you read a little bit online, you find out that most lawyers will advise you to add more papers that are not in the list. So like your CV and things like this, it's written nowhere, but they say, yeah, but just add it because they always ask for it. So that's one thing also. You've got that list. It's like you're playing a game, but some of the rules are hidden, right? So you're like, okay. So you kind of need to figure all that stuff out. So for me, I had this list. Okay, these are the official documents, and then I had a list of extra documents. And I figured, and I think that's a helpful way of looking at it. I figured, if I just send so much paperwork and drown them, in the papers, it's going to make my application look stronger. So that all the good points, all the things, yeah, I'm 100% compliant, I'm ticking that box, boom, boom, boom. You just push that. And then the points that maybe were a little bit weaker, maybe a little bit uncertain, they just get hidden in the middle of all that, right? And your application looks strong and reliable. And especially when you do it yourself. Some people will tell you that you have to go through a lawyer. That is obviously not true, but they will say, if you don't, you have lower chances of results. You have less trust. They're going to be checking a bit closer and be a little bit more annoying. And in my case, I don't know. I just sent all my papers, and 1 month later, I got the visa. They didn't ask for anything extra. They didn't, ask more questions or whatever. But I think it's because I really sent them a lot of things, and I really imagine, what kind of question, what do they want to see, and I just addressed all those concerns, basically. And I think that's how you need to look at it. So even though it might seem a little bit overkill, some people told me, yeah, don't you think it's a little bit too much? So, well, maybe, but I'd rather, have them just say, okay, this looks good, this looks great, than them asking questions. If you send too little, they're going to start being like, okay, that sounds too shallow, it hasn't thought this through, and all that, right?
Right.
So that's how we look at the process as a whole. I can't go through all the paperwork now, but another thing to be aware of, and these are things that most people who just are in Japan don't understand. A lot of those, let's take one example. Let's take, the 5 million yen, right? Okay, you need to have 5 million yen on your account. So for me, that sounds, relatively easy. Okay, just 5 million. Then you find out that if you try to send 5 million yen, I had the huge account, which is the postal bank, right? If you try to send 5 million yen right away from, my Swedish account or whatever, they're usually going to block it, and it's going to be a giant nightmare. And, they're going to want you to send a whole bunch of signed papers and explain where the money comes from and everything, right?
Right.
So you take that first point, I need those 5 million yen on a Japanese bank account, and then you find out there's a whole bunch of subtasks that you have to solve before you even get there.
Yeah.
Right? And this happens a lot. It's the same with, you need the stamp, where do I find the stamp? You need the, where was it? The bank account, the corporate bank account. Okay, I need the corporate bank account. Then you find out that most banks don't want to open a corporate bank account to you. Okay. Then you start looking online, and you're like, the online banks, they're easier. Okay, I'll work. For me, I pick PayPay Bank. And then, PayPay Bank, they want me to have a website, but the website has to comply with their criteria. So you need to ask a friend of yours who's a programmer to program a website that is PayPay compliant. And that's how it is.
Yeah.
Every single step in that visa there's already a lot. It's already complicated, but it just drags on into this, because Japan is so complicated. There are so weird rules that, the snake biting its own tail. You're like, but how do I get this if I need that first? And they won't give it to me until I get this first, right?
Right.
And it just and it's constantly like this, right?
Yeah. Well, it's Japan. It's kind of a country full of unspoken rules that you figure out as you kind of spend more time there, right? And no doubt the
as
same
you
with
go.
the visa
That's exactly what it is.
experience. Yeah.
That's really what it is, and that's the thing, and it was very stressful because you always felt like, okay, what is going to happen that I didn't see coming? When you look at the paper, you're like, okay, I think I got this. It kind of makes sense. I got this under control. And then you start and boom, something happens, right? You're like, what the hell does that come from, right? One example I had was, fortunately, it was a minor thing, but just to illustrate my point. Okay, I finally got those 5 million. I was like, okay, what I did is I used Wise and I just transferred them 1 million at a time, so nobody would freak out, and it was fun, right? So you need to, go around those problems. And then it was like, okay, now I need to prove that. They want to see it when I register the company. And I'm like, okay. And they ask for the bank book thing. And I think nowadays they would accept just a screenshot or something from a bank account. But at that time, it was like, I don't know. I'm not going to take risks. Again, play it safe. Bank book. And I go to the machine, put the bank book in the ATM, and it won't print. And it just bugged. I was like, what the hell? And then you go inside and they're like, oh, it's because you haven't used it forever. So we need to reactivate or whatever. So they do their magic. And then suddenly it's working, and then I can go in that thing and print, and these kinds of things. And that was an easy I sold that within an hour. It was okay, but these kinds of things kept popping up all the time. It was, or your name is too long and you can't create a bank an account, right? Or like the name on your account doesn't match another name, and it's a nightmare. You need to talk on the phone, and that's something. You really, it's like you could write a whole novel about.
I know.
It, it's like a theater play sometimes.
Like limited kind characters that you can only use for certain cards and blah blah blah. Blah
exactly,
blah.
Exactly. Or their favorite. This one was a little bit later. It was for some investment accounts, not directly related to the visa, but just to illustrate my point and what you're saying. They're like, yeah, you have to write your name exactly as it appears on your Zadio card, right? Resident card. I'm like, okay, I just write my name as it is, And then they're like, oh, you cannot have space. I was like, okay, well, we remove the space, but it's not exactly the same then. And then, oh, it's only 20 characters. I was like, well, mine is like 21. So then it's not going to be exactly as it is.
Yeah.
And then what you do, right? So you try and it works and it doesn't work, or you give them a call if your Japanese is good enough. And all this stuff takes time, right? So you have to account for this. You have to account for all these middle steps that are really annoying and should not be there. I mean, it really should not be that complicated. So.
Yeah, well, that's why I always tell people, if I ever talk to anyone who's interested in the startup visa, like minimum 9 months, it's probably going to be 12.
Yeah.
And you've confirmed that again today, basically.
Exactly. And I think it depends, again, it depends on your business. It depends on, that's why, we're generalizing, but it's just more like the mindset. When I talk with somebody and I actually advise them in their specific situation, then we look at exactly what they're trying to do, in which city they are, whatever. But here, just in general, it's just important for people, especially people who are thinking about it or who know people who are interested. It's a mindset thing. You can't just pop here and imagine that there's a whole startup community and imagine that, you can just do everything online and, you're just going to be moving around the money between your accounts, or you'll just open a business bank account. No, you won't, because banks don't want to open an account for you. I'm like, what? Yeah, welcome to Japan. These are things that people need to be aware. There are ways around this, and I found a lot of those, and these are things that I like to share with people. There's also another thing maybe I'll mention is there's a lot also of traditions, that's how we do things in Japan. And I gave the example last time, but I'll give it for our listeners today. If you go to a lawyer or most professional and you tell them, okay, what do I need to open a company? They're going to tell you, well, you're going to need the honko, right, the stamp. And they're going to tell you need 3. You need 1 you're going to register, you need another one that you're actually going to use on everyday paper, and you need 1 for the bank. And legally, that is actually inaccurate. You need 1. The only one you need is the one you register when you create the company, and you cannot escape this one. If you don't have it, you cannot create a company. But that is the only one you need. The other 2, if you want them, be my guest, especially if you're going to use them a lot. And I've had banks asking me, oh yeah, we need your bank stamp. So I don't have one. This is just representative's stamp. That's all. And they're like, oh okay, it's fine. And then you just. So these are just traditions. Yep. And unless you know that, you won't ask. They go, okay, that's what you need. Okay, fine. You won't ask. And many times it's going to be, it's going to cost you, 30,000 yen. And I was like, I'm not going to put 30,000 yen on 3 stamps that I'll never use, right? And then my Japanese friend told me, no, you just need 1. You buy it on Amazon, it's 2,000. And these are the things that, most people won't tell you unless you ask, right? If you ask clearly, do I need legally this? They'll do, well, no. But that's just how we do it in Japan. And again, if you don't care about the money, if you just don't want to waste time on this, I perfectly understand that you don't care about any of that. But I guess, what I'm interested in for me is more like helping people who want to do what I did, which is doing it themselves with the lowest possible cost, right?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of costs that are just traditions or things that are actually not a legal requirement.
Because I think there's a lot of services out there that charge 10 grand plus, especially for a business manager visa.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you've got to be careful.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, like, just to add to your point about the bank account, I know Shinsei Bank, they used to do corporate bank accounts in English, but I believe I heard they've stopped that service now, so you can only create a corporate bank account in Japanese from now on. So
yeah. I didn't even know, to be honest.
Right.
I kind of gave up with the whole. Now, my personal philosophy on the language, I know in Kyoto they're very focused on, we don't have enough content in English and everything. And being a linguist, I don't give Japanese or Japan shit for, speaking Japanese. I'm like, well, this is their language. And, as a guest, we should learn it. Like a friend told me, sure, you just arrived. The expectation that you would speak business level Japanese to handle finance and accounting and everything within a year, while you're starting your business stuff, that's unrealistic. I agree with that. But I think if they simplify the process, if a lot of stuff was online instead of stupid PDF and papers, if, you can use Google Translate, there is a lot you can do to just bypass the language problem.
Yeah.
And I think it's just compounded by the fact that a lot of things is paperwork. There are a lot of those traditions. And, like if you're struggling to open a bank account, it might be a language thing, but more often than not, it's not. It's just, just the process is a drag. Once, that's why if you do it with online banks, it's much faster. You can just use Google translate your thing. So it of course, it would help. And having a business service and stuff is great. But as I look at it, again, maybe that's my linguist thing, it's a great opportunity to learn the language. I think you could still make it work. It would still be 10 times easier by just removing all those unnecessary steps and papers and everything, even if everything was still in Japanese, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they can improve it, and I think they have been, over time, gradually, step by step. I think entering Japan anyway, as overall, is just a good opportunity to embrace the culture and learn the language, because if you're going there and not learning it, then why are you going in the first place? Is my point of view, I think. So
I agree, and especially if you intend to work with the Japanese, right? I mean, I have that opinion, and I don't work with Japan so much, right?
Yeah.
But if you come and you're like, I need all the services in English, and I'm going to be selling and doing business with Japanese, that's the wrong mindset.
Yeah.
Maybe what I could say is, if you do both, it's great, right? If you simplify the process, you have things in English, it's amazing. But if I had to choose, I would say put the money and the energy on simplifying the process. Remove the honko, put everything online. It should take 5 minutes to register a company, and all that stuff. Reduce the requirement for the business manager visa and keep everything in Japanese. I would do this over, let's translate everything and just keep things as complicated as they are.
Right. And obviously as they digitize immigration and stuff like that, hopefully they'll do the same for these kind of services.
Hopefully.
But I'm sure it's one step at a time. Let's open up for questions just because we're getting close to the end of the hour. So if you do have a question for David, feel free to put your hand up and come up and ask. But in the meantime, David, I was curious just to learn more about living in Kansai. So Kyoto, obviously, you're close to Kobe, Nara, Osaka as well. How do you feel? Osaka, how do you feel like building a business in Kansai personally? And
I think
what's it like living there as well?
I look at it. Yeah, so my I just go to Tokyo like once a year or something, and I'm really not there very often. But sometimes when I speak with people there, I have a feeling, they live in that big city which has everything, and they feel like if you live outside Tokyo, there's like nothing. And I'm like, well, we're not talking about living in the middle of the countryside. If you live in Kyoto or Osaka, there's a lot of things going on, and sure, we don't have like 5 Uniqlo, but do we need 5 Uniqlo, right?
Right.
We do actually. I don't know. And I feel like sometimes people like they have this feeling like, if I'm outside Tokyo, there's nothing, and also you live in Kyoto, for instance, within 45 minutes you can be in Osaka. within 30 minutes or 1 hour you're at the beach on the lake. Within an hour, it depends where you live, you're in Nara, which is and all these places are different. Like 1.5 hours you're in Kobe, right, by the sea and all that stuff. So in terms of quality of life, for me it's not even comparable. But again, I'm not a city person. Kyoto is just right. I've got the mountains, I've got the lake, I've got everything. I'm happy. The city is nice. There's a lot to see, and it's very beautiful. And again, you want the big city, you go to Osaka. You want the really quiet, you go see the deer in Nara. On a purely business thing, I think when I chat with people around me, and you look at people who are in Kyoto, the business owners that are in Kyoto, first, a whole bunch of them are on spouse visa.
Right.
So they don't care about the visa. Everything we talked about doesn't apply. And most of them, they're here because their spouse is here. And again, they do business with people a little bit all over either the world or even Japan, work remotely, take the Shinkansen to Tokyo when they have to. It's pretty chill. They enjoy the life. Other people come here, and most people, why are they in Kyoto? It's not for the business opportunity. It's just for the lifestyle, right? It's the life quality. That's why they come here. And I don't know about Kobe, but I would expect a little bit something similar. So Kansai as a whole is trying. They're trying to create this like Kansai community thing. And there's a couple of groups in Kyoto. We have actually, I think let's see. Ibrahim is running one of those groups. So, and one of the groups that I recommend in Kyoto, and there are some in Osaka, some in Kobe. So we try to create that community. And I remember a Japanese who came from Tokyo, and he said, when I come to Kyoto, I like it because it's really the heart of entrepreneurship in the sense that people really work hard. They really try to get shit done. Whereas Tokyo, there's a lot of, entrepreneurship, it's cool, startup, and look at me, and, let's go drink together and join events, parties, and it's a lot about the image you give off. Whereas in Kyoto and things, it might be more about actually doing things because, it's such a small environment. And I think there's some truth to this. Again, I'm not very familiar with Tokyo, but I also think there are a lot of people who are here as basically long-term tourists and enjoying life in Kyoto, and, good for them, But yeah, that's how I look at it. I don't know if you really can run, especially a startup type of business that is focused on Japan from Kyoto.
I mean, they could always improve the digital nomad visa for people like that as well. And I think that's a big flaw of the digital nomad visa. But anyway, that's not really connected to what we're talking about. But Dustin's come up and has got a question, I believe. Dustin?
Yeah.
Feel free to speak.
Hey. Sorry, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, cool. No, yeah, it was a really great talk. My question is just, has this been recorded someplace? Because I missed the beginning.
I didn't catch that. I think the sound...
Oh, okay. No, I asked if this was recorded someplace.
Yes, so I'm recording as we speak.
Oh, and then how can we listen to it later?
I'll post it on YouTube and I'll share it with you directly after this, Dustin, don't worry. So.
Okay, sounds good. That was it. Thanks. Great talk.
Cool. Did you have an actual question for David or?
No. Well, that was my only question.
Okay, cool. Yeah. I'll share it after after we finish.
It's an important point, yeah. Maybe we didn't say
it. Sorry. And anyone else in the audience, if you have any questions, feel free to come up and ask. But let's say, so for David, for you specifically, what's next? Where to from here? Anything you're working on, or?
So now that I've got that 3 years visa, things are a little bit more relaxed. First I think I will try to travel a little bit, and also it puts less pressure on the business, because one thing, we didn't talk about that, but again, when you renew the visa, they're going to look at the results of your company. So you want to be in the black as much as you can, right? They're usually a bit lenient in the beginning. If you're in the red or something, they understand it takes a bit of time. Some people say, usually the immigration just assumes the 3 first years you'll be in the red anyway. So usually you're okay. But in my case, because I wanted to get those 3 years as fast as humanly possible, I was like, no, first year I have to be in the black, second year I have to be in the black, right? To get a chance. And it worked out. So that means that I have a little bit less pressure for that. And of course, I'm going to keep running my business, keep growing it, keep doing all that stuff. But you have a bit less of that, especially when you estimate your salary. That's the big thing, because you have to choose your salary within 3 months of the new fiscal year. And then you cannot change it for the rest of the year. So it's a bit of a gamble, right? If you take it too high, then your company results might be in the red because your salary counts as a cost, right? So great, you're going to have money and everything, but your company's in the red. That's bad.
Right.
And if you take it too low, which is what I did last year, then you have a lot of money on the company, which probably helped for the visa. So, okay, fine. But then, yeah, you leave all that money on the company and you pay, 25% tax on that. And that's it. The money's still there. So removing that pressure kind of helps. And then on the business side, well, my current business is running along as long as the yen is weak. It's really beneficial for me because I invoice in, US dollars, British pounds, and euros mostly. But I'm looking at really to start some kind of consulting activity to help people do what I've done because I think I have a lot of knowledge you can share. I think there is a need. And I've been, talking with various people, how can I do this in a way that suits me? And I know a few Westerners who have gone through this start offering services to, help people a bit like lawyers. But, they speak English, they have experience, they can give you a lot of the tips that I just gave today. And I think for me, I'm more interested in basically empowering people to do it themselves and probably targeting smaller scale businesses, maybe not guys who have, they're going to get a lot of investments or they have a lot of employees, all that stuff, because then you might really need help from some legal counselors, but more, people who are like, yeah, I want to start my business here or a small thing, or I want to move my business here. And again, they should be able to do it on their own. And, so that's the thing I'm looking at. I've been too busy to actually really act on this just yet beyond, just chatting with people.
Sure.
But, maybe writing some manuals, maybe making a course or things like this that would allow people to learn the essentials so that they can do all that stuff themselves, show them how to fill in the papers, what to write and where and so on. And also afterwards, once you've got the business running, how do tax work, what kind of tax benefits you can get. And again, I'm not a tax accountant, I'm not a lawyer, so that would be more like an introduction with all the things you need to keep in mind, the questions you need to ask, things you need to pay attention to help people basically run their small business on their own without having to call upon, dozens of experts that cost a lot of money.
In building that, you almost have to take a two-pronged approach, like prepare them for the mindset of being resilient and enduring some of the pain. And I'm going to call it pain because I think that's exactly what it is, of dealing with, just some of the process, whether it's the startup visa or the business management visa, but also looking at it from the Japanese point of view in terms of how you're going to build a company that's suitable for the Japanese market and that will capitalize on the domestic challenges or problem that you're trying to solve, etc. So I applaud you for that because I think it's much needed in the in the ecosystem or in the space. So
and it's a way for me to also, because I kind of like life in Japan and I think the country is facing a lot of challenges and I'd like to help out and I feel that's a way to, they want to attract people and everything, and by helping people do all that stuff by themselves, this should really make it much easier. If you get a manual or if you get a course, if you get, even a guy you can ask and who tells you everything I just said, right? Who say, oh, this is the paper you need, this is what you write. I could make those PDFs with, okay, these are the PDFs you need to fill, and you write this, things that, took me hours and days to figure out.
Right.
But once you figure it out, that's it. This is a template, just write your name here and sign it. And figuring this stuff out takes a lot of time. But if I'm able to share that with people, the value, I think, for them, and how easy maybe not easy, but how manageable the whole thing becomes really can make a difference. That's how I look.
Yeah, well, if you ever do anything in that space, let me know. I'll be happy to promote, or share with my contacts.
Thanks a lot.
Anyway.
That'd be great.
Cool. We're getting close to the hour. Looks like not many people have any questions, but what do you think are the top 3 things that you want to leave the audience with? It could be something you haven't said because, we didn't have enough time to cover everything today.
There would be a lot of things. 3 things about what.
Let's talk about so if today's specific topic was around visas, from startup to business manager visa and then business manager visa to renewal, what are 3 kind of key things that you think people need to really be careful of or be aware of in that process?
So one of them, maybe we'll repeat that, is like the mindset, because I think it's very important before you start looking at paperwork and everything, just so you understand what you're getting yourself into. You need to be aware there's going to be a lot of rules that don't make sense, people asking for things that don't make sense. So just be, like you said, prepare for the pain, prepare for the craziness, that thing with the brain in the fridge, right? Another thing, maybe it's related to that, is like do not underestimate especially the business manager visa. I've met a guy from Inner Mongolia. He had this great business idea, and we met, and he told me, and he wanted to do a lot of things. After a while, I was like, being the party pooper that I am, I told him, okay, what visa are you on? You're on a startup visa. Okay, how many months do you have left? Well, I've got 10 months left. I said, have you done anything for the business manager visa yet? No. And I said, okay, but then you stop all your IDs, you pick one, and you just get this done, register your company, and focus on the visa. And I know it's annoying and it's frustrating for business owners. That's what they should be doing. They should be, building stuff and trying things and testing and everything. But you need to be aware that, again, unless you throw a lot of money, and even then, I know a guy who did this, and still he was annoyed all the time by the lawyer asking for something, then the immigration office asking for something else.
Yeah.
So you need to be aware, okay, until you get the business manager visa, you're going to have to spend some time on this. And if you don't, you're like, I don't want to think about this. Well, if you lose your visa, then all your great ideas and stuff, they're done. I mean, if you don't have a visa, you can't stay in Japan. So it's really at the core, right? And people don't like to think about it, but that would be my second thing. So the mindset, and then really don't underestimate. It's a lot of work. It's very important. And the third one, I don't know. Anything else we just said, maybe just, learn Japanese. It's not super massively important, but I think it still helps. It's just going to make things faster, easier. You're going to understand why people ask those questions. And again, I'm not one to talk because I'm learning on my own on the side. I'm not going to school or anything, so it's a slow process. Yeah. But I can see if you're able to give a call, if you're able to, just navigate the websites and stuff, it does help a little bit on this.
Yeah.
Because it is complicated.
If there's anything I learned from you today, it's around like mindset, timeframes, and you can do it yourself, if you put your mind to it. So I think that's the kind of what I got out of
maybe
this.
Yeah. You can do it yourself. Absolutely. That's
exactly.
True.
Exactly.
If you're focused and disciplined and stuff, it is possible. Maybe that's the best example. And then also maybe, we'll just add that. Once, and that's because to have a good news after all this, right? Once you have the visa, as long as your company is making money, so maybe that's a big if, but as long as your company is making money, the renewal process is nowhere near as complicated. You still have to do a few things right, and you can totally do it yourself. And if you want, to increase your chances, you have to get some extra papers, which is why for me, I did a little bit more than the bare minimum. But again, it's really nothing compared to actually getting the visa. So startup takes time, but it's not that complicated as long as you comply. Business manager takes time, is complicated, is expensive. And once you got this, just focus on your business, make money, and you'll be good to go. You can just renew your visa. So.
Yeah, I think also people, especially if they're focusing on the domestic market, underestimate the value of local partnerships. And especially if you're focusing on Japanese customers, I think there's real value in building, when you're building your proof of concept or whatever it is, taking advantage of local partnerships too. Because if you really want to create credibility and trust with your customers, that's a great way to do it as well. I'll just add that just as my
out there
3 cents, 3 yen. So yeah, cool. All right, well that's 8 o'clock. Oh, sorry, that's 8 o'clock here. Sorry, 9 o'clock in Japan time.
9 o'clock here.
Yeah. So thanks so much for your time, David. Really appreciate
my pleasure.
You being here, sharing your insights. But yeah, I encourage everyone to. I'm sure it's okay to reach out to you, right, David? If anyone has any questions.
Absolutely. Yeah, sure. If they have questions or whatever.
Great. And yeah, also look out for future events. That brings us to the end of the 3rd episode of Founder Stories in Japan with David. No doubt we only just scratched the surface of what is a very detailed topic and very topic that I'm passionate about as well, to try to stop the spread of misinformation and really get real, true experiences, insights and stories out into the public. If you'd like to connect with David, feel free to reach out with him. I'll put a link to him in the description below. And if you'd like help with the startup visa or business manager visa in Japan, we are available to help you navigate some of the challenges that can be really difficult to overcome to enter the Japanese market. Feel free to contact us for more information or to book a free consultation to talk about your startup some of the challenges that you may potentially face and how we can help. Thanks, guys, and we'll catch you in the next one.